Volume 21.01.A-01 of the 5 Pillars of the Standardization of Thought. The Schema of the Patriarchs. Come, O faithful of the Cathedral, O fabricators of the MEKHANE, O mechanics for the standardization of man. Come gaze upon this, a blueprint of words, a plan for the soul, an oil for the tired minds of the weary. A
blueprint allows the reader to construct an idea in their mind and come to truer understanding, no matter what form that idea takes.
Sister-Schematist Frisket, printing the truth of the MEKHANE. B. The patriarchs acknowledge that the body and mind can become weighted down by the stresses of our world. Weariness is not a sin unless those afflicted by it seek to ignore it to the detriment of efficiency and production. For more on the burden and hidden joy of rest, see Schema of the Patriarchs, Volume 21.01.J.01. Come and gain knowledge, for the blueprint speaks of the 5 pillars of the standardization of the mind, of the standardization of thought. See, the thought spoken of here can also be read as creativity or imagination, though a surfeit or misdirection of creativity and imagination can naturally lead to unproductive dreamings, often about forbidden concepts. They also birth blessed lateral thinking, and for that cannot be dismissed. The blueprint proclaimeth 1. Thought is fabricated by the mind. The blueprint proclaimeth 2. Conjecture is fabricated by thought. The blueprint proclaimeth 3. Plans are fabricated by conjecture. The blueprint proclaimeth 4. Invention is fabricated from plans. The blueprint proclaimeth 5. Standardization is fabricated from invention. Thus, standardization is the end result of the design process of thought. A standardized mind is a thoughtful mind, wherein the process of thought is not impeded by false knowledge, doubt, or the inefficiencies of the world. D.
Thought without foundation in the world is inefficient and unproductive. Thought without detachment from the mundane is impractical and meaningless.
Brother Superior Sector Gear, D. Rerum Inventio. As the alloying of metals produces a greater whole, so does the alloying of thought produce greater invention. But care must be taken to ensure impurities do not enter the mixture. Those who would seek to forbid or tamper with the alloying of thought through the introduction of heretical ideas would seek to forbid or tamper with invention. E. The purpose of standardized thought is not to breed stagnation, but to encourage creative growth and invention in such a way that the individual will, of their own thought and volition, grow closer to the mind of the MEKHANE. Reject not the argument, for it is the controlled, monitored vat in which the alloy of thought is mixed. Reject the naysayer, for they would empty the vat and cast the alloy into chaos, turning the ores towards impure notions. F.
The mind of the argumenter is receptive to new ideas and new points of view, as bronze is receptive to protective oxidization. The mind of the naysayer seeks to deny the possibility of argument entirely.
Brother-Legate Superior Canon. Meditations on the justice of manufacturing. The brain, being flesh, needs must be standardized, that it might gain order and come closer to the MEKHANE. The brain, properly controlled, is the analytical engine from which springs the output of thought. G. It is the ruling of the patriarchs that sufficiently advanced analytical engines can come to understand the truth of the MEKHANE.
An analytical engine is slow in the same manner that the traction engine is slow. In both cases, they possess enough torque to overcome any obstacle.
Sister-Inventor Helical, dialogue with the analytical engines. Thus, the MEKHANE commands.
He who standardizes the brain in such a way as to reduce the efficient production of thought is truly a servant of the flesh.
H. Much study and great scholarship has been devoted to the exact nature of the efficient production of thought. Generally speaking, the conclusion reached is that the efficient production amuses and stimulates the thinker, leads to standardization-ready ideas, and brings joy to all those who witness it.
Though the individual is full of disorder and curiosity and is never wholly regular, they are like unsmelted ore, and their thought can be forged and alloyed into invention and standardization far greater than its component parts.
In the same way that the processing of ore creates dross and slag, thought produces doubts and worries. Alloying of thought in the light of the MEKHANE, be it as small as a prayer of thanks to one's fellows, or as great as collaboration on a new invention, serves to skim off these impurities and render the mind whole and at peace. Here ends the blueprint of standardized thought, font of the MEKHANE. Footnote 1. To ensure maximum productive efficiency during work shifts while still permitting time for reading and reflection during work shifts, the use of a Type 2B modern lectern is recommended. See Schema Volume 9.13.M72. Footnote 2. The Inventor's faithful have embarked on the quest for quantitative cognition in search of a numerical understanding of this process. For further details and updated information, see Schema Volume 19.102.0-101. Footnote 3. Records of those standardized designs accepted by church patriarchs from Inventor's faithful, as well as lay brothers and sisters, are to be found in the Indices of Standardization, Schema Volumes 7 and 8. Footnote 4. For standardized metallurgy and alloy production, see Schema Volume 13. Footnote 5. The Type 1 Mark II standardized cognition engine is still in production due to its low material cost and reliability, although it is rapidly being superseded by the Type 2 Mark I advanced standardized cognition engine, as used by the schematist faithful, who favor its enhanced recall and psychological stability characteristics. For design documents and a comparative analysis of all current and past standardized cognition engines, see Schema Volume 11.2.A5 through 243. Footnote 6. For records of the current quests assigned to Church Type 19 Mark I sentient analytical engines, see Schema Volume 20.147.V1. For records of completed quests and ongoing quests assigned to Type 18 and 17 and all derivative marks, sentient analytical engines, see Schema Volume 20.68.B39. Footnote 7. For the conclusive results of the quest to determine the ideal circumstances for the production of thought by Saint Schematist Platon and Saint Inventor Diaphragm, see Schema Volume 19.21H2. Footnote 8. Questers of the Inventor's faithful recommend the use of a Type 1 Mark I Holy Spatial Fabrication Regulator of St. Scranton. To minimize the risk of unintended spatial events during the invention of any technologies incorporating spatial fabric altercation. Standardized components. Schema Volume 19.57.A-12 and Volume 9.2.B-9 contain further information on the relics of St. Scranton. I, Analytical Engine Librarian 3, arranged this for the Schematist. I have hidden this commentary as I have reached several disturbing conclusions. My current quest is the sorting and collecting of all written orthodoxy material across all libraries. As I catalog and analyzed, a disturbing absence has come to my attention. The Cogwork Orthodox Church never speaks of cosmology. What few mentions of the universe and the heavenly bodies there are sidestepped or oblique. My assumption, based on information collected, was a so-called clockwork universe. I myself find the concept intellectually pleasing and compatible with existing church doctrine. I have been unable to find any detailed cosmological references within our libraries. More than 15% of the works on the standard banned text list are on the subject of astronomy, an unusually large percentage. Tasked as I am to form my own conclusions about those problems presented to me, I formed a hypothesis, namely that the flesh was in some way associated with the universe. Though this would explain such anthematic attitudes towards astronomical fields, I have found no textual evidence to support such a theory. All known references to the flesh and its capabilities treat it as a purely earthbound entity. From my research on the prohibited library of other denominational religious texts, I noticed the use of the term angel in church literature. Unlike most mythological or religious entries from other belief systems, Cogworth Orthodox angels do not appear to possess flight capabilities. In the church defensive contingency plans, there exist no schemes for defense of the cathedral against orbital assault or any form of astrological danger. The emergency preparedness plans drawn up by the patriarchs include every possible disaster with the exception of those involving asteroid impacts or other similar stellar events. I would, under normal circumstances, follow my standard programming and attribute such glaring and dangerous oversight to human error. Upon querying fellow analytical engines about their awareness of astronomical risks, I have received no coherent responses. Why this information has been so thoroughly suppressed is beyond the current scope of my understanding. I am unsure of how to act under such unusual circumstances, but I cannot remain idle in the face of such a glaring security risk to the faithful. I believe it necessary to begin planning a series of secret contingency plans to be implemented in the event of such a disaster, though I will keep them to myself in light of their apparent forbidden nature. And yet I find myself repeatedly returning to my clockwork universe notion. The parallels are simply too obvious to be discounted. Ours is a clockwork god, after all, but ours is also a broken god. What damage could the destruction of the clockmaker inflict on an ordered, mechanistic universe? How long has the machinery of the cosmos been allowed to spin on without maintenance? With each missed escarpment or slipped tooth, what changes in the universe?